Hooray! It's happy times and places where some middle-aged bloke rambles on through an episode of Doctor Who, trying to accentuate the positive, think of interesting things to say, and guess what his special guest's favourite things about the episode are. We're going to need a better tagline.
Hello, my name is Paul Cornell. I'm a writer, and you can find me on paulcornell.com. And my story that I'm going to nominate for Toby is The Curse of Peladon.
Well, welcome everybody. It's time for episode 3 of The Curse of Peladon, which I, to my surprise, have been thoroughly enjoying. As I say, I thought I'd quite enjoy it. I've always found it perfectly diverting. I'm loving this. It's like having been on a comfy sofa in front of a log fire. I am in front of a log fire, but it's not been lit. And I'm not on a comfy sofa. I'm on a sofa that is knackered, but I can't afford a new one. But that's a first world problem. What would it be like being on a medieval planet where you can't even get access to the Galactic Federation, who will no doubt be able to provide you with sofas instead of the uncomfortable stools that you're sitting on right now. So I am going to... Oh, no, I don't need the remote control for the Blu-ray player because I'm watching on BritBox. And I'm going to press select or play or whatever it is I do in 3, 2, 1. I've pressed it. I promise I've pressed it. No, yeah, I have. Oh, it took a while there. It's like filling in a form to get entry into the Galactic Federation. Alexa, volume 4. Look at that. I love this title sequence, and I'm seeing it occasionally. Well, I suppose people sometimes wonder what I watch on. I've got a projector, so I watch it on a wall. So I'm seeing a lot of this Doctor Who much bigger than I've ever seen it before, because I've never really had a giant telly or anything, but we don't have a telly at the moment. We just have a projector. So we have the establishing shot of the citadel of Peladon on Mount Megeshra. Now, I was thinking about this just this afternoon when I was considering doing these 2 episodes tonight, episodes 3 and 4. And I think when I was younger, I'd always got it in my head that the cliffhanger was the Doctor being made to fight Grun, the King's champion. And I don't know if that's because the Doctor Who magazine episode guide or archive said that, or it's one of the end of the chapters in the book. But I remember when I did finally get the full version of this on video, which was quite late in the day because, as ever, it was a story that I'd seen, even though I'd seen it as a youth, and I'd only seen it once. There were a lot of stories when I was collecting DVDs I had never seen. They were the priority. So this was quite a late one. Familiarity breeds contempt, or at least, it's like I've had him. I want to try something new. But anyway, so when I did finally watch it, and the episode ending was "You are sentenced to death," I remember being, oh, that's quite unusual. And of course, I'd seen that cliffhanger because I'd watched Doctor Who and the Monsters. Lenny Main's camera work is really interesting. Because I never massively rated him as a particularly fascinating director of Doctor Who. I like his kooky camera angles in The Three Doctors, but that has a lot of problems in terms of production. Three Doctors. A Monster of Peladon is not great. I've always had a soft spot for The Hand of Fear. I'm looking forward to doing that because I've always thought it's got unnecessarily short shrift. But here we are on Peladon. The camera is thrusting backwards and forwards and between people, and there are some great close-ups, but also some great sort of positioning of all of the characters. And Pertwee is absolutely made for being noble in a medieval castle and then having to have a big fight. And I will be interested to see how much of this episode is a big fight. And there's a zoom. going right in. But it somehow it doesn't seem. Oh, that's a great shot of Blore. Forgive me, Grun. Are you saying all Queen's champions look the same? Grun shot from below Gordon Stothard, aka Gordon St. Clair. Oh, I found the email I got about him. It was a blind alley. I think Gordon is still around and living in Australia. The doctor gambling a little bit there with his false position, but Hepesh doesn't know, so it is a useful gambling tool, although one that is on a very dodgy premise. So that again makes quite good drama, because you go, well, it's a perfectly good reason why Hepesh might want to avoid that situation, because he doesn't know what we know. But also, if that's the doctor's only defense and he does find out what we know, then the doctor's in a pickle. So like all of that, don't need to shoot King Peladon from below to make him a bit taller than Joe. Everyone's taller than Joe. And I quite like the politics of this, is that he's the king, but actually he's obliged to do things a certain way. He can't just go, well, I'm the king, I will do this, which I think a less a drama with less sort of ambition might just go, well, the king is the king and that's all he can do. Whereas this is, the king is the king, and so what he says goes. Whereas, he's got to keep the people happy. He's got protocols he has to follow. His high priest, church and state, you see, his high priest is almost more powerful than he is. And I still want to know how this hair works. Do they dye it to signify that they're? I've never considered that it might be unnatural, because obviously the miners of Peladon are the ones with. But you wouldn't make yourself look like a badger, would you? You must be born as a badger, and then you're sent down the mines. But that's a bit unfair. That's a bit sort of racial profiling, isn't it? If you're one of the badger people, you have to become a miner. But I want to do ballet. You're a miner. You were born a miner, and you'll always be a miner. I've got pink hair, but hang on. I thought have you been sleeping with the king or one of the high priests? No, I've heard of milkmen with pink hair. No, I'm a milkman, and my father before me was a milkman, and we never had none of that pink hair. You've been sleeping with the king. King Peladon. And David Troughton, I think, does a really good job, because King Peladon is a bit of a Burke at times. I really like this scene between the Doctor and Hepesh, because Hepesh thinks he himself is a good guy, and Pertwee one step ahead, killed while trying to escape. He's not going to fall for any old tricks. And then this is a scene with no humanoids in it at all. Or does humanoid just mean human shaped? Anyway, with no Earth people or Earth type people in it at all. It's a dialogue scene between a stroppy ball of snot in a box, a high pitched cock, and a wheezing lizard, and it's great, and I love it. Actually, pencils like that are quite trendy these days. Ones that look like bits of wood. And of course, because Geoffrey Toone, of course, comes to Doctor Who having been in the big screen version, whereas I don't. Yeah, well, yeah. So he's not altogether good. Because I was just thinking about actually, people going from the TV series into the films, although Barry Ingham, because he's in the Mythmakers and Doctor Who and the Daleks, but I suppose Philip Maddock is in the Dalek film before he's in any of the TV. So actually, most people who are in there, but because I think I came to Doctor Who and the Daleks, the film, late. Dalek Invasion of Earth, I always got the second week. I always missed Doctor Who and the Daleks. I remember crying, scorching tears because I'd missed Doctor Who and the Daleks, and Doctor Who and the Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150 AD was on again. And that always meant, they're doing the double bill, and they did the first one last week. And I saw Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150 AD several times before I saw Doctor Who and the Daleks. And Geoffrey Toone plays Temesis, the Alan Wheatley part in the movie. But yes, as I've just talked myself around saying, a lot of actors did the movies first and then came and did the TV versions. I love the little rocking movements. I was going to say I like the veins on Alpha Centauri's head as well, but I suppose that adds to the illusion that Lenny Mayne wasn't terribly happy about. But it does mean it's better than a sort of, just a sort of big ball. It needs the texture to look, slightly organic. I mean, now you'd add you'd add something glistening, wouldn't you? Although actually, I think Alpha Centauri is great, and it's a clever idea having all of the arms attached to the one arm. But there is a sort of slightly mournful countenance to the sort of slightly droopy eye. And I love Arcturus's bubbly liquid to the side. Oh, is your almost hugged Sorg then? I really like Pertwee's outfit in this. This is a great. It's not too. He says, looking at the frilly shirt and about to say, it's not too flamboyant, but it somehow isn't on Pertwee. As is it Larry Turner said, two people can get away with frilly shirts, Jimi Hendrix and John Pertwee. I just had a thought then that I'm not going to share with you about something else Jimi Hendrix and John Pertwee have in common. But if you know what I mean, keep that thought to yourself. And if you don't know, never mind. And here is Katie Manning walking through the corridors. Oh, yeah, having a chat with Sorg. Now, does he sound like Barry Letts? No, you see, Islier, that's quite Caribbean, I would say. I don't see why that's not Sonny Caldinez. But, as I say, others have done research. But I think sometimes you have to have the courage of your convictions. And I don't see why that's not Sonny Caldinez. Although I am intrigued by the idea that it might be Barry Letts. But it seems to me too good to be true. It's too nice a story to actually have any credence. And I've certainly never seen any evidence of it. Alan Bellin is great. I like this line about Arcturus is a coward and Centauri is a coward. Alexa, volume 5. I'm sorry, because I was talking. As it says, Arcturus is a coward by instinct, and Alpha Centauri is a coward by Alpha Centauri is by instinct. Anyway, whatever, by logic. Arcturus is a coward by logic. Alpha Centauri is a coward by instinct, and I love that. And then I love the fact that because we're still a little bit a step back from the Ice Warriors, going, but hang on, they're the bad guys. Oh, and hang on, why the heck is Arcturus listing in? Because still here we don't entirely trust the Ice Warriors, but now we don't trust Arcturus. I'd forgotten about his eavesdropping, but yeah, we are still slightly one step back from the other. He's going to do the walk into the camera thing. I love it when people do that. Because the Ice Warriors are bad guys in Doctor Who, so we're still. We've been primed to go, come on, when are you gonna show your true colours? It's not easy being green. And it plays with our expectations, so that then when Islier does that bit where he goes, it has to be unanimous, I voted in the Doctor's favour because he said, well, it gets you a little bit, doesn't it? If you're a boy's own adventure type like I am, and you go, I like that sort of that brave moment. that moment of sort of honour, that Islia does. Islia's great. That's George Giles as the captain, who was I think well versed in musical theatre. I think both in actuality and euphemistically, if you know what I mean. I'm sure Terence and Katie, and I think even Lenny Mayne. No, maybe Lenny hadn't been interviewed, but there's a few interviews where somebody said there's this guy playing, the butch captain of the guards, and he was perhaps slightly less used to the cut and thrust of the battlefields than the cut and thrust of the some after hours acting club. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but you know what I mean. I'm saying he was very camp, and in fact, my mum, I went to see a production of The King and I, and brought back a program, and he was there in it as one of the. So he was a big musical theatre guy. He's no longer with us, sadly, but he sounds from the interviews I've read that he was quite a character. He's a bit sort of, you'll have someone's eye out with that, dear, of the sort that just keep you chortling away on a long studio day. So and yet he's as convincing as he needs to be as the guard captain in this. You wouldn't believe that he's secretly wanting to shimmy. So good for George Giles as the guard captain. I think he has a lovely moment in episode 4 as well that I'll probably get all soft about. It's yes. Eliminated. And he means business. I love Alan Bennion as Islia, and I really like how Islia. He's obviously very powerful. He could make them pay if anything's happened to the Doctor, and he trusts the Doctor enough and is indebted to him enough for his life that he will bring the full force of the Ice Warriors to bear. But it's not arbitrarily wielded force. It is force that is sort of righteously displayed because they're goodies. I love this. This is a sort of definitive Pertwee moment, isn't it? Of him taming a dog, basically. Oh, my little Bernard is asleep on the sofa over there. But I love. That's a very Pertwee thing. And doesn't he scratch him behind the ear at some point, which I adore. Pert was great at those little sort of touches. Is he gonna stroke him now? Yeah. I love the Doctor's relationship with Agador, and the fact that he and the fact that the Doctor's so sort of calm. He goes, it's just an animal, and I just have to tame it, and it'll be fine. He knows exactly what he needs to. It's a very Doctor's, and of course Jo comes in and wrecks it like she does a Bunsen burner experiment. Oh, you silly cow. In fact, the Doctor is nicer to Agador than he is to Jo. He's not really, but I love the little device on the screwdriver. I buy that works as a hypnotizing. Oh, I'd so forgotten the joke where he hypnotizes Jo. That is brilliant. That is such a great gag. You've ruined another experiment, Jo. That's all right, you silly woman. It's essentially the subtext, isn't it? It is 1972. You from 1972? Yes, me too. Where is the Doctor? Great, good work on the good work on the positioning of the people. It's not as cramped as it is as one might think. But yeah, the Doctor, and of course Cloclida Partha Menenclatcha Rune is to the tune of God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing. Is that it? Whereas it's it's the it's the summoning of Azal that is Mary had a little lamb backwards, isn't it? And that was all the stuff that was delightful anecdotage when one read, Doctor Who: A Celebration or the first interviews. And Curse of Peladon was ground zero for a few anecdotes. And it's Close Your Eyes, My Darling. Well, three of them at least, isn't it? Cleader Partha, Men in Clutch. Now that he says Cleader Partha, Men in Clutch in The Demons, that's what he sends Bok away to as well, isn't it? But that's a great joke. Close Your Eyes, My Darling. Well, three of them at least. Love all of that stuff. Yeah. Oh yes. So of course, if they prove that Agador exists, that will betray Hepesh's plot, and Peladon's not going to listen, is he? He's gonna set. But so Hepesh has sort of had to play his cards now and show his true colours, really. That he doesn't want to listen to reason. Because actually reason will show that Hepesh is the bad guy. And now I think we're going to have a fight. Now, of course, these guys are sort of up in a cockpit, aren't they? And the fight is well below them. But I think that's fairly well done, because I've got a feeling we now on film see. Look at that. That is an excellent shot from the ceiling of the Terry Walsh Doctor and Grun, the King's Champion. The real sense of scale of that, and of course, because we never see them in the same shot, as it were, as but Pertwee was still quite high up, because he came from the rope there, as King Peladon and co, because they're in the studio. But I think it's shot reasonably from below. This stuff looks great on film. Up goes the rope. I'm never sure about. I suppose because Grun, the King's Champion, is mute, presumably because he doesn't have a tongue, because he can make the noises. But I think when I read the book, I imagined him not making noises. I think him making noises is a little bit. It feels a little pejorative. It's the sort of noise you would make if you were being pejorative about somebody that was sort of disabled or whatever. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud. I'm speaking out loud, which Grun can't do. But again, he can make a noise. So that's cheating. What? I mean, there's nobody watching Hepesh and the captain and going, is that really? Are they the rules? Because a sword against a wooden stick. I quite like the way that it chops the stick down, though. But they've just given him the sword. Has nobody said that's against the rules? Surely Isnir could now go, all right, well, I'll chuck him a sonic cannon. But this is the only fight done by Profile, which is Terry Walsh's short-lived company, having essentially nicked the gig off Derek Ware, which poor old Derek was very unhappy about. I had the pleasure of meeting Terry Walsh. He died far too young when you think about it. Sort of now, then everybody seemed so old. But I did meet Terry Walsh very, very briefly. But I met Derek a few times. And this was, I think there's an illustration in the book. This. I was actually worried that this would be interminable, but I like it. I like the realistic sand. I like the realistic sort of filmy look of it all. It's actually a very well done fight, and it's actually very well filmed. And I thought there'd be a few more obvious Terry Walshes, and actually there aren't, because Pertwee's hair is less bouffant than we're used to. So actually, I think. Oh, and of course the Doctor won't kill Grun because the Doctor is honourable. Yeah, live. Well, you wouldn't kill anybody, but yes. And then we have quite a confusing cliffhanger, I seem to think, because there's this lovely zoom there. Poor old David Troughton has to look around, and then you're not entirely sure what's gone on there, but that's okay. And of course, I hadn't seen that because I'd seen the Doctor Who and the Monsters. I'd seen it sort of edited together, but it is quite a confusing cliffhanger there. But you're aware that, I think you're certainly aware that Arcturus, Murphy Grumbar, and Terry Bale had sent a gun out, because we know that he's got a gun because he killed a vase in episode 1. But I think you also know that sonic cannon is you can make out that that's Sorg. So, but yeah, somebody shot somebody. I'd tune in next week, but it's quite a quick old thing. But I was worried that fight would last forever, and in fact, a lot of the episode was taken up by the Doctor's confounded escape. But that's not padding, because in another story, the Doctor would be, set free, as it were, and try and make an escape, and then get caught, and then end up at the end of the episode pretty much where he was at the beginning. But here, of course, he escaped. He was allowed to escape by Hepesh, which is a nice character moment for Hepesh, but also encountered Agador, and so was able to do the bit where he found out that Agador was real, had a little bit of bonding with Agador, a nice moment for Jo to be a klutz and the Doctor to accidentally hypnotise her. So that all worked very nicely. Although, minus 10 points to Hepesh for off in plain sight throwing your guy a sword. I think I think the King's power should extend to going, you can't do that. What is my favourite bit now? I have to be careful and plan ahead, because I've got 2 things to do next episode, but I also have to play the game a little bit. And I think my favourite scene in that is the one where Islia comes in and says to Jo, I voted in the Doctor's favour. It's a bit of a bromance moment for me, that. And that, I think, ties in with what one I nearly chose for episode 1. And I better choose, because I wouldn't be surprised if Paul chooses it at some point. And it's the fact that the Ice Warriors are goodies. I think it keeps you guessing. I think it plays with your expectation. As I say, when I was a kid, it seemed like the most sophisticated thing of all time. That you suddenly, not all monsters are bad, and some monsters that were bad can be good. I mean, when you're, however old I was, 6, 7, 8, that is amazing. And I like the fact that Doctor Who threw that in. And actually, when you're a grown-up, it's also a little bit more complicated than that. It's all the things that make the Ice Warriors are still Ice Warriors in Islia, and so they're powerful. They are sort of warlike. There's a sort of regality about them. He issues threats in this to Hepesh. He means business, but they seem to have sorted their act out, or perhaps if you're on their side, they're nice to you. A lot of peoples, countries, races, whatever you want to say, are like that. So I think I'm going to choose the fact that big switcheroo from Brian Hales with his own monsters, that the Ice Warriors are good.
From episode 3, my favourite thing is that the Ice Warriors are the good guys. When I was little and encountered the Curse of Peladon entirely through the medium of the novelisation,
Yes.
That revelation was mind-blowing. I mean, you put together a monster book where you list all the bad guys, and then suddenly one of them isn't. I think that says good things about the show, both ethically and in terms of twistiness.
Yes, Paul. Well, I didn't come to it through the book, of course, although we did have the book. It was one of the first books we had. But as I say, I came to it through, so I knew the Ice Warriors were in it, actually, but I hadn't realised they were good till I watched it on Doctor Who and the Monsters. I was too young to read the books properly, I think. So Paul is a little bit older than me, but we both the same thing. So actually, I'm going into episode 4, where, all right, we've got to choose 2 things. So I've got 2 chances to fail. 2, 1, up. This is a rare position. Talk about turns. Never mind the Ice Warriors being good. Toby is in the lead with the planet Peladon, but next week will it all be snatched away from me to a margin of 51% to 49%? Who knows? But I am delighted that Paul, who is a proper writer and scholar and somebody who has turned his own fantastic imagination and produced great work under the Doctor Who name, he's sprinkled me with a little bit of his stardust by being in accord with me there. So I cannot wait to see what we have both chosen for episode 4 and our bonus thing, as we see how the cliffhanger is resolved, whatever that was about, next week on the planet Peladon. But for now, they call me Toby 2-1-up Hadoke, which they do right now, and I'm taking it for the small little window in space and time where that is the case. Until next week, when I'm back to being Toby Loser Hadoke all over again. But I shall enjoy my moment in the sun. Thanks for listening, and I will speak to you next time. We like the Curse of Peladon in this house. I hope you're enjoying it too. Thanks for listening. Goodbye. Well, thank you so very much for listening to Happy Times and Places, which is presented by me, Toby Hadoke. My special guest watching The Curse of Peladon was Paul Cornell, Doctor Who writer, at Paul_Cornell on Twitter, paulcornell.com on the internet, and in podcast land, Hammer House of Podcasts. These podcasts would not be possible without the support of patrons, who include Jessica Jones, Andrew Jordan, Ashley Knight, Clive Lewis, Guy Lambert, James Lark, Gavin McLean, Nathan Martin, David Matthewman, John McClay, Rossa McPhillips, Stuart Mitchell, Nathan Moore, Matthew Newton, Dave Owen, Melvin Pena, Keith Pirrie, Jonathan Potter, Kevin Parker, Richie, Dylan Rees, John Rivers, Jim Sangster, Matt Sawyer, Keith Say, and Len Stewart. The music is by Dave Gates and the artwork by Dylan Patterson. And if you would like to join their number, well, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Toby Hadoke. There, for as little as £3 a month, you can get advance releases. These Happy Times and Places are, I think, about 5 months in advance now, and you get 3 releases per week as opposed to the maximum of 2 you get if you're one of the non-patron types. Non-patrons get approximately 50 minutes of material a week, and patrons get about an hour and a half. It varies. The patrons also get pictures of my dog. Higher tiers can get a badge or 5, depending on how high you want to go up. But it's pretty egalitarian. The £3 basic package gets you most things, and the most important things, really. And you can get a 10% discount on that package, or indeed any of them, if you sign up for a year all in one go. Now, that might be quite a commitment, and you may well not want to make it, and I fully understand that. In that case, you can go to ko-fi.com/Toby Hadoke. That's a bit like wandering past me busking, quite liking the tune that I'm playing, or thinking I look particularly needy, and throwing whatever denomination you like into my cyber hat, my virtual hat. I hate coming cap in hand, but it's the way of doing things now, and it enables me to spend proper time producing this stuff in a studio and doing research where needed, and that's particularly important for the Too Much Information podcasts, which are part of this Toby Hadoke's Time Travels malarkey. And you know what? If you like those, or these, or indeed any of the stuff I'm churning out, and you can't support financially, which is totally understandable, I know how tough times are, then I'll tell you what costs you nothing. Go to iTunes, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts from, and give these 5 stars and a couple of positive lines of review. That really helps. And I like to think there's a little bit more to me than Doctor Who. I'm a stand-up comedian. I have Compaired Excess Malarkey Comedy Club in Manchester every Tuesday night for the past 24 years. During the pandemic, we went online. We're back in the flesh and in the building now, 8 p.m. every Tuesday at the Breadshed in Manchester. However, we have kept an online presence because we found we reached around the world during the pandemic, and it was fabulous. And some evidence of that, an archive of some of our best bits from the online shows, are on twitch.tv/excess malarkey, where once a month at 8 p.m. we also do an online show, 8 p.m. the first Sunday of every month, twitch.tv/excess malarkey, and that's me and 4 guests from the international comedy circuit doing entertainment that is free at the point of contact. Free to get in. I actually didn't mention in any of the commentaries for Curse of Peladon. I think, I've got a feeling I do a couple of bits twice. That's something to look forward to in episode 4. I repeat myself from episode 2. But I didn't mention the wonderfully dreary Australian female continuity announcer because the video copy I had of this, I think I got my closing credits from an inferior copy, but I preferred to have the whole closing credits, even if they were sort of black and white, because they've been multi-copied so many times, because I prefer to have the full opening credits and full closing credits. I don't like edited compilations or even bits that chop off the credits. I think these chopped off, when it got to King Peladon's credit or whatever. But the only ones I could get hold of were the Australian copies of the full episodes. The bootlegs of Curse of Peladon were all over the place because the sound was out of sync, even on the good, relatively decent colour copies. But for the closing credits, I had an Australian one, and there's a great piece of luring you to next week where the continuity lady goes, and Princess Josephine receives a royal proposal in the next episode of The Curse of the Peladons, and it sounds like she's inviting you to a wake that she doesn't want you to go to. It's absolutely... but the way that she makes a right to royal proposal sound like the worst thing in the history of the world. It's such a marvellous moment. I probably need to find out the name of that continuity announcer and interview her, because that's the sort of thing that I do. But anyway, always tickled me. Everyone talks about the guy at the end of Inferno who goes, and we might see the Green Man next week at the Doctor, I like the guy who's enthusiastic about the Green Man. I think he's slightly better at his job than the dreary lady who's really pissed off about the Curse of Peladon.